as we take a look at both Washington, D.C. and Caracas, Venezuela. We're following the latest developments in the stunning seizure of Venezuelan's President Nicolas Maduro by U.S. forces. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, is calling on Venezuelans to push back against Trump's intention to temporarily run the country. So let's take a deeper dive into the legalities surrounding the capture of Venezuela's leader. With me now is Jeremy Paul, professor of constitutional law at Northeastern University. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. So there is
Thank you for having me.
some dispute, you are very welcome, over the legality of the U.S. military capture of President Maduro. So let's start there. Did the U.S. have the legal authority to enter the country and take the leader into custody?
Well, I would say they did not. But I think one of the most important things for people who are criticizing this action is not to get painted with the idea that there was something good about Maduro. Maduro was terrible for the Venezuelan people, and it's a good thing for the world that he's not there anymore. But the way he was removed violated several basic principles. One is there was no rush, so there was no reason why President Trump could not have consulted Congress before he acted. And number two, there was no threat to any Americans or self-defense reasons for doing so. The Security Council had not authorized an invasion, and there was no evidence so far as of yet that any member of the Venezuelan government asked our president to intervene. And so under international law and under domestic law, this was an unlawful action, even if it had a good result.
So I kind of can anticipate your answer then to my next question. Does an indictment in the U.S. give them legal authority to use military force in another sovereign country?
Well, it might have. I mean, I think it was still complicated, but President Trump completely undermined that rationale at yesterday's press conference. So Secretary Rubio did a really nice job in explaining all we were doing, he said, was seeking extradition of a felon. But if that were true, the moment that Maduro was apprehended, and he has been apprehended, and he's now in custody in New York, then that action should have ended. But instead, President Trump went on national television and told the world that now we're going to run the country of Venezuela. You can't square that in any way with the idea that this was merely law enforcement action. Even if it was law enforcement action, it's not at all clear that our country had the right to go to another country to effectuate law enforcement action. I think that's a much more closer question. But once we're talking about running another country, one sovereign running another, the extradition rationale just falls apart.
You mentioned that Maduro is in U.S. custody. He's facing a number of charges, including narco-terrorism, possession of machine guns. What happens to him next?
Oh, he's going to be tried. There'll be a trial. He'll have a lawyer. His arguments will be fully aired by the press, and we'll get to hear. He won't be convicted unless the government can prove beyond a reasonable doubt with evidence that he's guilty of the things that he's accused of doing, as you say, trafficking drugs and weapons.
What's to stop the U.S. from entering another country? For example, Cuba. Rubio was asked about that earlier this morning.
Well, I think that's one of the most disturbing things about what Secretary Rubio said today and what he said yesterday as well. The only thing to stop us from doing this is pressure from sources that the administration takes seriously. Congress clearly has a role. Other international countries have a role. The United Nations has a role. But if the Trump administration decides that they're going to go ahead and do it, it's very difficult to stop them.
Jeremy Paul is a professor of constitutional law at Northwestern University. Thank you so much. Glad you could join us today.
Thank you very much.